Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Fringe Focus. My name is Connor Kelly O'Brien. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Scranton Fringe Festival. If you're watching this live, that means you are scrolling through social media looking for a distraction for the game, or perhaps you were just so excited as I am for our featured guest tonight. This is a weekly virtual video podcast show where we interview various leaders of culture, creativity, and community from Northeast Pennsylvania and beyond. Our guest has been on the show several times before we branded it as Fringe Focus last year. One of our original guests, I think, actually. We are so excited to have her here tonight. She is a force to be reckoned with, a community leader, an educator, academic, and activist. She is the founder and chief executive officer, chief director, all-around producer, maker of things happening at the Black Scranton Project, and she's here to talk about her organization, their work past, present, and future, and specifically the work they've been doing this month and will be continuing to do in honor of Black History Month. Without further ado, please welcome to the virtual stage, Glynis M. Johns.
Hey.
Hi.
That was a great intro, thanks.
We should have I should have a little sound effect machine.
Gotta get the air horn.
Oh my gosh, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. We are just self-care Sundaying, cleaning the house, creating a vibe, just chilling out, resetting for the beginning of the week. So that's usually what I do every Sunday. We have a cup of decaffeinated tea. This one is blood orange.
Very nice. Very nice. Do you have any particular brands that you prefer?
This one's from Trader Joe's, but Miss Trader Joe's. I've been emailing them once a month so they can make one in Clark Summit, Dixon City, or Scranton. I'm like, all of the women, all of those Clark Summit moms would be all over it. Those Wegman people.
Is Trader Joe's cutting you a check now, or?
I don't know, but I'm just like, hey, please.
Wonderful. So you mentioned that's your Sunday routine. Are you the kind of, so we talk to people who are leaders and creative activists in their various communities. Are you a routine kind of person, or are you more responsive to what feels right day by day?
Yeah, definitely on what feels right. I'm trying to be more of a routine person, but this pandemic has thrown me from all types of routines. So trying to find new balance there, but I definitely use Sunday as like a reset day. So whatever needs to be done, if it's laundry, cleaning the bathroom, clipping your toenails, washing your hair, all those things are important to self-care. So I take that time to really tap into myself, figure out what I need, try to decompress. Probably a lot of people watching know that I talk to a lot of people, so I try to use Sunday as my day to go inward. But this is like a little treat. It's Black History Month, so things are different. And also BFF with Scranton Fringe. So glad to be here.
Love having you here. If you're watching this live and you'd like to comment below, we're always just trying to get the conversation moving. If you'd like to comment what your personal version of self-care, perhaps you have a Sunday routine, or maybe a different day of the week is your rest day, please let us know. It's probably unlikely if you're watching this live you don't know, but just in case, because we do have fans and audience members in the Fringe Festival, and I'm sure Black Scranton community that are across the country and beyond. The Black Scranton Project's mission is to expose our community here in Northeast Pennsylvania to the historic narratives of the African-American community of Scranton, PA, and it cultivates awareness and unity through arts and public history. For really quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I think we always have to rehash the general stuff. Really quick, how did your organization come to be?
So this all started as my graduate thesis. I was in New York City at the time, thought I was never coming back to the area. And my goal at the time was to write a graduate thesis because it's a huge writing assignment. And I have severe writing anxiety, and I thought this would be a nice win for me. Just write 75 pages and say, look, you could write a lot. You're good. So I was thinking about what I wanted to write, and I came home one holiday and realized that a lot of people truly don't believe Black people are from Scranton. And so with that, I took this into a research question and tried to debunk the stereotype. If you're Black, you're not from Scranton, and why people believe that. And I started to look into how long Black folks have been residents here and started to trace back hundreds of years. And from that point, it felt like I had to share this history because for so long, people were telling myself and everyone I know truly believes that Black folks have not been here for so long. And yeah, with that, I'm like, yo, I feel empowered. I feel inspired. I need to bring this here. So it started from 2017. It was just a little project to a little community project. 2019, turned into a nonprofit 2020. It turned into a movement in 2021. It'll be turning into Black Scranton Project Center for Arts and Culture. So we keep expanding. Many blessings, a lot of work. It's a labor of love for me, but I wouldn't be anywhere else, to be honest.
Yeah. No, and I think you and I have privately, and possibly even on this show, have had this conversation before, because we've both had very, very different journeys, but in a similar experience of having a passion and a calling in this region, even when we were living, in a different, larger region, whether it was, New York, Brooklyn, when you were, at the time pursuing your PhD. And it's, what is it about Scranton that pulls you back in? And I mean, we could both, I'm sure, just easily say it's where we grew up, right? And I mean, for me, moving back full time was as a direct result of the pandemic. But I'm curious to know if you agree with me that there's something so powerful. It's not just because we grew up here, right? Because a lot of people leave their hometowns forever and don't, work as passionately from a distance as we have, and especially as you have. There's something about that you can actually make change happen that's just so, I hate to use the word intoxicating. Like, there's something so incredible about, like, it's hard and it's an uphill battle, and you have dealt with numerous additional challenges, but you have been able to move the needle. And it's such a powerful feeling. Do you agree, or do you have a different take on it?
I agree. Yeah. I definitely think there's a different vibe in the city of Scranton. There's like this more of a residential feel. There's like a different type of community, and there's a different type of struggle here for a lot of people in terms of like poverty struggle, that rural struggle, that backwoods kind of thing, So there's a lot of layers here, and I think and because it is like a micro city kind of, have the ability to have the sort of like privileges of a city while also having like the range of being a small town community. So for me,
except it doesn't have a Trader Joe's.
Yeah, we don't have Trader Joe's yet, but like once we get there, it's gonna be you'll never get me to leave then, because I literally drive out to Jersey for Trader Joe's stuff, because I love Trader Joe's.
I agree with you. We have some comments here. We're going to pull up real quick from Lindsay. We have two. We have I'm All About Self-Care Sunday and Yas Glynis.
Self-care.
Thank you so much. Yes, self-care, very important. Thank you for commenting, Lindsay. Something you mentioned before, I want to go back to when you talked about this false narrative that you and others in your community were constantly hearing, that there are no people of color, there are no Black people from Scranton and Northeast Pennsylvania. Just to give people out there who may not fully understand this, when you say this, that false narrative isn't just coming from, the everyday person. That narrative has actually come from one person in particular who's quite powerful, more powerful now than they were maybe a few weeks ago. Do you want to mention who that individual is?
That's Joe Biden, President Joe Biden. Yes, he has taken the national platform stage. CNN, if you really want to, he was talking to Don Lemon, November 2019. If you want to, run the receipts.
You have the date. I like it. Right now.
But yeah, like he'd get on national television and be like, the Delaware Black community, the Scranton Black community, new Black people, and I'm just like, okay, that's nice, but like, hello, I'm from Scranton, I'm Black too. Like, can you show us some love? Can you show the Black folks here who voted for you too, who was your supporting base also? Like he loves to applaud the Black community for like being behind him so intensely, but you still completely overlook your hometown Black community. And so for me, it's always it's jarring, the fact that it hasn't made it to his desk. Although I know it's made it to his desk, it just never manifested into anything. For me also, I just feel like our Black organization does not need to fight for the view or the recognition or the validation from the current president now, but that he should see that as a need for him to address the rest of his community, not just I don't know. Is he Irish? Yeah, he's Irish, right? I don't know.
Yes.
Connections here, either Polish, Irish, Italian. One of them, like deep.
He is Irish. I think he might have other.
Like all those roots that really ground him here in the community, that like support him heavily, and like his home being over in Greenridge, all those old white women love to support him and lift him up and do all these things, and he comes and sees them and comes down here for that. Now that we have Kamala as the vice president, I just think like Those two identities combined create Black Scranton to me. I feel like that is another level of what Black Scranton actually looks like. You can come from Scranton, you could be that scrappy kid from Scranton and literally get to the top. And it's like, I want people to focus on the fact, like, hey, look at this excellence, regardless of your race, ethnicity, culture, background, creed, whatever. You can come from Scranton and make it to be the success, the top of this world. And there's more people from Scranton that are incredibly successful. So I want people to take that narrative and also use that as like, this is why we need to protect the babies here and make sure they have education, because look, they're able to be the president. So why are we treating them like disposable? I don't know.
No, I agree with you. And I made a note about education. We're going to come back to that in a second. Yeah. And I think it's, both of us run nonprofit organizations. So as organizations, we don't get political, but just speaking as individuals right now, and just speaking as people, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but, I'm sure everyone out there will be shocked. No, I voted for Joe Biden. I'm sure it's going to come as a big surprise. But I think it's important though. And I said this, you and I talked about this the whole year leading up to it, that, my voting for him is not a statement of that it's 100% perfect or that a magic wand is suddenly going to be waved. As wonderful from a representational standpoint as it is to have people like Kamala Harris now as our vice president, I think that we would be intellectually dishonest if we didn't hold their feet to the fire just as much as we did.
If not more.
If not more, because from the expression to who is given a lot, much is expected, and and I think to your point exactly that Black and communities of color activists, from Stacey Abrams to the field worker in rural Pennsylvania that were getting people out to the polls, to all of us who fall somewhere in between, so many communities helped deliver that election. So there's nothing wrong with all those communities, asking for and demanding and expecting results from this new administration. So
and expecting seen by them, honestly. Like I think
it goes back to a bigger conversation, right? About like it, regardless of who that position should be that position shouldn't feel as unattainable and powerful as it could, regardless of who's in that seat. It's because it's supposed to be a representation of the people elected, but and I fully agree with you. Is it wonderful that there's someone who grew up in Scranton president now? Of course it is. But when we create that optic and that image of the scrappy kid from Scranton, why does it have to be this all white, those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, because I feel like I was a scrappy kid from Scranton. I was out
here,
right in the city, biking all over town, still do my whole life.
Absolutely. And we had this conversation, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, so just to, for a little levity, that what makes someone so distinctly Scranton? And there's so many ways we can look at it, but for me, when someone's truly, in a good way, there's good and bad, when someone's really, really good from Scranton, someone from Scranton, assuming they're not a jerk, can operate and live and operate and exist within almost any space you can imagine at any given time. Like
we talked about with that Danish reporter, remember?
Yes. Do you want to set up the stage of that story real quick, just so people know what we're talking about?
And they sent me the link to it, and I never really watched it because it was in Danish for the most part, and I was like, and I was trying to fast forward to get to me, and it was like an hour, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get back to it. So I'll dig it out and put the translate on. But,
I appreciate the honesty.
For those now I guess talk about it. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, during the election time, a lot of international reporters were hitting me up like, we want to know what the Black like in Scranton with Joe Biden being from here. And it's so wild because at least 5 different countries reached out to me to understand the Black experience.
Right.
But none of these American reporters, none of the major news conglomerates did that for me at all. And it's so wild because that made me realize like we have global attention and people are literally looking for voices and had no problem. They said, as soon as I typed in Black people in Scranton, the first result is Black Scranton Project.
You could not walk around Courthouse Square in downtown Scranton. And I talked to my friends back in New York who thought I was joking. I'm like, I not anywhere. And without there was like Israel, Spain, Denmark. I mean, and because, and I forget who explained it to me, but it was explained because we're so close to New York, Philly, and even relatively close to DC. Yep. Any one of these international reporters that have, satellite offices in the country, were just descending upon, because more so internationally, Scranton sort of became this living metaphor for everywhere USA. Yep. And it became, right. So I mean, and then the end, and layering it with the year of racial reckoning that the United States has had for 2020, I can see why the international journalists would be so fascinated by this intersection of a voice. Yeah. And also, I was grateful to them, because, and they were hitting up people like you, and I got asked a couple times, very modestly. I really appreciated that they were showing, and when I say a different voice of Scranton, I just mean a more well represented.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, people like you and me who work, work in our different causes. It's not like we're the only ones. It's not like it's you and me and then no one, right? It's not like you are the only, and I think that's what's important, right? Is that we showcase, like, no, there's lots of people in this community doing amazing work. Yeah. And there are so many wonderful Black-owned businesses, and so many, Black entrepreneurs and community leaders, and those seeking, whether it's elected offices, already have elected offices, or, positions of leadership within the city or the state or the county. And it's just, it's like they hone in on the same people that WNEP finds at every single, political rally. I swear to God, it's like the same 5 people.
Yeah, I turned down a lot of things this year. I was checking people. I said, don't you dare come into my inbox talking the way that you do. Ooh, wait, one day I might make a blog post and just screenshots of the ways that local reporters, local people in this city be like, hey, we need you to do this race and diversity training. So are you available this day and this day only? Sorry, there's no availabilities in our schedules. It will give you great shine. Oh, it's also for free. So what say you don't respond? They're like, hey, I know you missed this. You're probably really busy, but this is an important email. And I'm just like, to you, it's important. To you. And also, you're not paying me for my intellectual labor. And then you have the audacity to be rude and come to me and tell me how I'm so impactful to the community, but then put no value behind it. Lord have mercy if you would have known some of the CEOs and these people that I'm just like, who do you think you are? And this is the year for me where I'm not taking no shit. Black women have been disrespected so heavily. And if I have to go through the gutter and have to go through all the shit, I'm going to make sure that the other little Black girls here know that they don't have to put up with that. Like, listen, don't let no one disrespect you. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I already told them for you. I said, if you come to any of these people and speak to them the way that you do, I will blast you. I will really I will make it hurt for you. I'm just being honest with you. And yeah, so that's one reason why I'm just like, this year, no, run me my coins where the money reside, okay? Because we're not doing this anymore. And yes, they can pull that card where, oh, you were doing it for free before, because I was out here hustling just to get my work out here. Now you see the value. Now you see the value.
And I think that it's, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say, the story is no longer the same, okay? I'm being out here being validated in all these things by the governor, the senator, other news conglomerates now. Gucci was like, hey, sis, we think you were a change maker. I'm like, all right. Because of you, I was in Vogue. I'm like, okay. So, yeah, don't come to me anymore with that free stuff, please don't. And the senator is also about to, excuse me, sorry. So yeah, I'm definitely about to be one of the most influential Black leaders of the entire state coming up soon. The announcement's about to be
very cool. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Very cool and well deserved. Oh, that's so interesting. There's so many directions. One thing before we move on, I want to bring up. We have 2 comments from Alicia. Alicia, yes, I'm telling you, it was.
Oh, yeah, they were out.
Glynis probably had it 10 times more because of specific outreach, but I'm just telling you, just as anybody walking around Courthouse Square one day for a week straight, it was I talked to someone from Israel because I thought it was fun and it was cool, and of course I plugged Fringe, and then I got literally 10 steps later, someone from Spain, and I was with my mother, and I was like, I gotta go. And then I took it upon myself because I wanted them to see, a queer representative from Scranton. I was so, nervous that they were getting only one particular image. And I think for some of them, you could tell the questions, they kind of wanted to create an image.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of like a everyman USA, which there's nothing wrong with that, but who is the everyman USA?
Story steering, yeah. And I'm like,
yes.
Listen, that's not the story here. So they'd ask me questions, and I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, you want to know about the actual Black history of downtown? Take a seat. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
that monument. Like when they would ask me questions, I would just say whatever I wanted. I'm like, if you want to talk to me, this is what I'm giving. I'm giving facts. I'm giving historical notes. And they're like, we want to know more about Biden. I'm like, this is all I have to offer. When's
Biden? Very interesting. We have a comment from another from Alicia. Good for you, Glynis. People deserve to get paid for their expertise. Yes, Alicia, I agree. And you touched on something I think that's so important. You know, you said where the money lives. Because, you know, I mean, there's nothing, and to be clear to everyone out there, there is, if you are, you know, a tiny little grassroots group and you want to reach out or questions to an organization like the Black Scranton Project, when you have the time, Glynis, I'm sure you have no problem. It's not about, it's all wonderful to create bridges and communication. I know you face this, but, you know, how do we stop? Because how many times a year do you get an email asking, can you come speak at X, Y, and Z? And it's like a week, it's like with 1 week notice, and it's, you know, based on the literal academic research and history that you've taken years to cultivate, develop, and document, and then there's no pay. Like and also I think it's worth noting that, you know, and it's coming from a corporation, a company, a Fortune 500, an academic institution that has a budget. We're not talking about some grassroots church group.
Right.
Or profit.
We're not talking about that.
No, and I don't know, and I have this conversation in so many facets. How do we stop that? Mm-hmm. How do we stop that from happening? Because once they've made the ask, it's too late. It happened, right? How do you stop it from happening to the next person, or how do you stop it happening 6 months from now or next year when they decide it's, you know, Black History Month again and it's time to, you know, field an attempt? What approaches have you taken? How do you draw that? You talked about setting those boundaries in a very real sense. How do you set those boundaries?
Yeah, it's really hard, and it's definitely a case by case basis. And one part of what you said that I realized, the people who have become more intentional about it and really want to pay you for your work are the ones who really do not have it. For example, like it's always the teachers, like the individual teachers from this school, that just want me to come talk to their classroom. They're like, but you know, me and the PTA raised $55. And I'm like, honestly, y'all, keep it. Or sometimes they'll give it to me. And I'm like, thank you. I really appreciate it. Like, y'all fundraise for this. And it's like, I would have done that for you guys just anyway, because I want to be around the kids as much as possible. But none of that to, they're doing like diversity training amongst all the administrators of this major company in NEPA. They want me to do it for free. Meanwhile, they're all getting paid to sit and listen to me.
Right.
And I am going to clear my home morning, create a decent PowerPoint, to engage with them if it's in person, you know, do a little small talk, do a little networking, whatever it is beforehand, hang out, answer those extra questions, and then also take on all those stupid microaggressions that go with it for then it's free. And then all you guys do is like, we had fun this year, and make this like nice video post. And then what's worse about it too is when they have additional sponsors to host these sort of race and diversity training. So they get thousands of more dollars specifically to bring me here, and I get goose egg of it.
Right.
And what do? They put that money and give it to they probably pay those people to sit there to listen because, wow, we wouldn't take any more of your time to make you uncomfortable.
Yes.
But it's like, you want my labor so that way you can feel more comfortable, and who's also still extracted. And when we talk about slavery by another name and extracting the value, every single thing out of a Black person and then just discarding them like, oh, where's the next one? Give me the next diversity talk person. Show me another person of color and do the same thing. It's like, no, I don't want people to go through that. And like, there's more power in telling some of these people no, or just being like upfront. First thing I say when I get those emails, I said, hey, what's the budget like for a project like this? If they say there's no budget, I either just don't respond anymore. I say, thank you, no, this is my rate. Here's my invoice. And then either they will fulfill the next step, or they just won't. And it tells you all you need to know right there, you know? And I'm still learning as I go. These are the tips that were passed on to me, because it's really hard to introduce that question and also find the value in yourself. And if you're a public speaker, you are a freelance person, you are just an artist out here doing your thing, you got to set the value for yourself, because the amount of work that you put in and the amount of love you have for something that people are coming to you for has value. So set that tone. And if the value in that rate increases because of demand or because of like your training or your expertise, don't be afraid to set the bar, because you'd be surprised. Because on the other side of that, some people, some organizations, some places are like, that's all you want. Or some of them that know are like like, hey sis, you should crank that up a couple notches and then resend the voice, you know? So I think it's more about people being open and knowing too, this is the last part of this rant that I'll say, it's like, to work with these big organizations or these foundations or institutions and this person and that person. And for this special event, like if you know this is a special event and you're asking people to be keynotes or like, you know, whatever, you should automatically be like, how much can we give as an honorarium? Even if it's something to show that you are appreciative of taking their time to do those things.
Yes.
On some spaces, I'm noticing it happening more, but in most spaces, it's still not happening. And a lot of times in conversations like on the side, joking, like, oh, tell us about yourself. And there's a lot of these conversations where people want me to spend an hour talking about what Black Scranton does so they can decide if they want to work or align with us. And like it's so crappy, because you could just Google it at this point and see. And obviously not every organization is going to have that, but again, that took years to build, a couple years to build that. So we could still be fighting literally for just being at the baseline. Like I'm still fighting to be at the baseline, and people think like all this is super grand and successful. No, even with what happened yesterday, there was a lot of fight just to get just that little thing done. So.
And I'm going to circle back to, oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about. I'm just going to let a minute sit for a second, because that was a TED Talk in itself. And that was so perfect. I think it touched on so many points. I think everyone, anyone that's a freelancer, anyone that's in the graduate academic, especially, Black Indigenous persons of color, especially female identifying Black Indigenous persons of color, could learn so much from what you and know what you're saying. So I just want to hold space for that, because that was fantastic. And I think it's also, I also, and you and I, both coming from nonprofit organizations, I think, and you said this, but just to really hone in so people know, it's not just for-profit companies that perpetuate this. There are other large nonprofits. If anyone out there is in the nonprofit world and you have never read a little book or done research into the concept of the nonprofit industrial complex, I highly advise, I'm not going to link anything because I just don't want to mess with that right now, but I highly recommend, just Google nonprofit industrial complex. Let me be clear. It is not saying nonprofits are evil. It's not saying that we don't do amazing work. It's just saying that when a nonprofit reaches a certain complex industrial level, is it necessarily doing its mission? Is it necessarily benefiting its mission? And the very hierarchy and structures of nonprofits can be rooted in a lot of not so great things. And I highly advise that. And it's so frustrating, and I'm sure you've experienced this, and I'm not trying to equate our two situations at all, but it's when you're asked to get involved in a collaborative cohort project, and the concept is, oh, everyone's volunteering their time, and I've had to be the one, not sometimes for myself, sometimes for others on my team, to be like, you all are collecting a full-time salary at this table. I understand that you might not be getting additional compensation for sitting here today, but I mean, it's 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. You pull a salary, you're getting paid. My little pittance of a contract with my nonprofit organization is one of 7 jobs that I have. And by the way, I'm so lucky and fortunate to have anything. But and I'm sure you've experienced that too, where I think we need to stop asking so much of the same people over and over and over and over, and then never considering, what they might need, and also the beautiful thing about our conversation is just ask. Just ask you, hey, Glynis, we'd love for you to come speak at this event. What is your budget? I don't know about you, but doesn't that just take so much air when someone just
send us your invoice for this, and I'm like, no problem. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when someone shows that, and I'm not trying to say undercharge yourselves, but when someone shows you that respect and that consideration, I'm immediately more amenable to the number. Like,
right. You're very more likely to work with them and be like, all right, yeah, I understand that. But yeah, like you said, they're just,
and I know that I don't want to turn this into a rant.
it gets really hard. But I was on like, I'm not on that type of time anymore. Just especially in February. Please don't. Please
Right.
don't. And I've just gotten more, I don't know.
And I think it speaks to your soul, though, that you commented that it's not just about you, it's about the Black female community leader that's going to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be the next, and that's, I think a lot of times that's kind of a struggle, right? It's that, okay, you found the right path. And like you said, it might be case by case, but you found a good method for yourself. But how are we disrupting the cycle for the next person? Because if they got that no from you, they're going to take 3 days and they're going to go, okay, and they're going to move on. And how do we disrupt that cycle? And a big part of that is education. And you've touched on a lot of the work. You mentioned like the teachers that didn't ask you. I know you've done some fundraising recently for area teens and youth that needed computers in the area. Tell me a little bit about, and people might also not know your background as an educator yourself. Why are you specifically so passionate about the youth of Northeast Pennsylvania and helping them, and what inspires you to put a focus on that?
Yeah, because I was a Scranton School District student at one point in my life. And as a Black student of the Scranton School District, I was always treated less than, despite the fact that I made honor roll every single year. Despite everything. Like, I'm so blessed that I had people that actually cared about me and showed me different things. And because of my socioeconomic status, because of nonprofits and programs around that was like picking out like, okay, this is a young Black honor roll student who's also going to be a first generation student. We should put her into this college prep program because like, how else would she know about college? Those sort of things came my way only because I was the most disadvantaged student despite being smart. And so I say all that to say, like, there were so many teachers that told me I couldn't, that I won't, and I will never be. And a lot of them now are being like, oh, you're such a star. And I'm like, bull crap, because when I was in the classroom, the same one who told me I should never write anything again, that I'm just terrible at this, that, all these different types of things. I care more about what I'm wearing to school than what I care about in the classroom. Actually, no, I care more about what I'm wearing than anything you have to say. So let's really get it together that way. Because I would see through a lot of the BS in the school, and like, I didn't really like a lot of the things that they would pick for us to read, or like, I'd want to read something else, or like we'd have a project to do about cultural stuff in the city. And it's like, oh, a lot of people worked in the coal mine. Let's go to the coal mine tour. Like, doesn't this feel like your ancestors? I'm like, no, it doesn't. And look, there's none of these wax figures down here are Black either. So this is y'all's history. This is what y'all used to do. No offense or anything, but I used to hate that. And they used to wonder why the Black and brown kids were not interested, because you never even made it seem, you never even found ways to be like, I don't know. Like, so yeah. So I say all that to say that the school district did not really do much for me. I had to have that drive and stuff myself to get myself where I wanted to be. And now I use that as an example. So now that we see that the school district is worse than when we were there, and now all I can think about are the same kids who grew up in the projects with me, who aren't getting those little Boys and Girls Club activities, or the volunteer students from the university, or this little nonprofit that rolled around to, help kids get prepared for the SATs. All that is gone. So now they don't even have the outside help, and the teachers don't care about them. They also don't have internet, or they might have their one parent's little hotspot. So all 3 of their kids can get on there and do Zoom classes with one computer, because the school can only give each family one computer. So then you wonder why these kids are failing and aren't logging on. So it's just like a trickle down effect. And if I was in school right now, I would have been that kid that was severely affected. So when we got those 9 computers, that's 9 kids and 9 families that have it easier. I want to try and figure out a better system to get more kids and figure out where the need is. But yeah, what drives me is to know that I was that child. I was that kid, and I know what it's like. Not saying it's a bad experience, because that experience made me more culturally aware. I've tried foods from around the world, had friends from all over the place. See the highs and lows. Like you said, there's something about the city where there's like the most richest people that live in the area and some of the most poor people, and you interact with every single one of them.
Yeah.
So Yeah, my experience has really shaped me and has made me, yeah, like I want to see kids have it easier than me because I think that's cool. I don't think that is, you know, there's nothing wrong with that to me. So
Yeah.
I just want to do it because no one else cares about these kids, and we can see, we have evidence of it. Like y'all were letting kids drink poisoned water and breathe poisonous air. So
It's so crazy. I
those
want,
computers.
and I want to give specific credit because you mentioned it quickly, but the Black Scranton Project went out, wasn't a big campaign, wasn't a huge to do. You just went out and you bought 9 computers for students in the Scranton School District that were in need. And
Well,
I think
it wasn't on me. Heather Rose. Well, no. I'm sorry. Amber Viola was
right.
working with the youth center to do the youth shelter to do it. They had gotten, I think, 4 at the time, and I'm like, we got a generous donation from a sponsor who was just like, hey, we have way more money this year. We know all the projects and stuff that you're doing, so just take 4 times as much money as we normally give you each year.
Wow.
And I'm just like, okay, how much are Chromebooks? So I'm like, we can take $1,000 and get as many computers as we can. So I got 5 computers because,
Right.
hey, like we got way more than I thought we'd have. It's a pandemic. We are here to help the community. This is how we can help, and I feel better about being like, okay, we're not having events this year, but now look, these computers are going to last these kids for a couple of years. Even if they are Chromebooks, now they have the option to log on. And when the school gives them another computer, look, now you have 2. So if one ever breaks down, you have one. One's a work computer or a school computer, the other one's a play computer. So I always tell the parents, if there's any parents watching and they're like, hey, does your kid have a computer, a school issued computer? Get the school issued computer because you never know what's going to happen. And
Right.
little kids drop things and whatever else. If they have a school issued computer, get it, and they do their school issued work on that school issued computer. And if there's a school issue on the computer, guess what? You bring that issue up with the school.
Right. Take advantage of every resource.
Every single resource you can get your hand on, get it. And if you don't need it, you might need it later.
Well, and that's also, the school district is funded, in major part by taxpayer dollars. That should, as a community, that should be our first vested interest.
Yeah.
Making sure they have the resources they need. Absolutely. For those who have been watching, you might have noticed a particular link to the Black Scranton Project website scrolling across the bottom. You can go to their website for blackscranton.org for anything that they're doing or learn about their history or make a donation, speaking of which is always encouraged. But
always encouraged. And
so they can, and you just showed that, it's immediate response. It's not going to sit in the bank. You are doing some long-term planning, of course, but the more micro donations, modest gifts, that you receive, or even larger corporate sponsorships went right back out into the community for those 5 Chromebooks, which is such a vital need. And that, when I talked about the nonprofit industrial complex before, that's the sort of thing that nonprofits fall into the habit of. Because we're basically, we have to document and communicate what we've done to the state, right, to the federal government, and sometimes the state level, and even going down to county, municipality, and cities. Sometimes things get held up in the pipes, and there's something so powerful about when nonprofits can separate their long-term planning to their short-term, radical, immediate responses. And I think that's something the organization does so well. One of the programs that you're working on, though, or have put into action, is your 3rd annual series of programming for Black History Month, which of course is the month of February. Now, this is your 3rd month of programming, but this was your 2nd year of doing a Pan-African flag raising at the City Hall, Scranton, Pennsylvania. I think it's worth mentioning that this was your 2nd year, so your 1st year last February was in a very different world than we currently.
Very different world, and this was like weeks before the world shut down. So
I remember before we went for Adelaide, Australia, it was like one of the last, was that and like the silent disco thing that weekend. It was one of the last things we worked on. Half the gallery was at the old location. Everything just feels so different.
So different, and it hasn't even been a complete year yet, which is the craziest part of it all. Like we're approaching that week though, like Silent disco thing, I was like having a great time. I was having a great day, right from the gallery, right from AFA to the cultural center, and I had to drag my friends. I'm like, it's gonna be fun, guys.
I remember you dancing on the dance floor all night. It's equal parts feels like yesterday, equal part feels like 10 years ago. Now, let's talk about, you mentioned yesterday you had a thing, which was of course the flag raising.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, while you're talking, I'm gonna try and screen share some pictures from yesterday and see how that goes.
Cool.
Talk us a little bit about how that came to be. It was the second year, what challenges, and how did you feel the day went?
So this is our second year, and it was so fulfilling as what I kind of expected it to be. It's really cool to know that I started a tradition in this city, and it really has created a whole special energy here. And I know I'm not the only one who feels it because a lot of people were talking about it yesterday. Some conversations in the background that people I don't know, I can totally hear. But for me, it just felt like it was super important. Yesterday at the flag raising, I was just so cold, out of my element, and like I had been outside since 11, so way before everybody else. And I was like, listen, I'm gonna talk minimally. I want all the speakers to talk. Like I need to get out of the cold. So for me, I felt like it wasn't the best performance I could have done, but I do really love the fact a lot of people came by. I didn't expect that at all, honestly. And I say that for every event that I do. I'm like, I didn't expect anyone to come, but genuinely, I'm like, it's cold. I wouldn't come out here, honestly. I might have just sit in my car, try to find a good parking spot and just sit in there. But it was cold. Yeah, it was cold. It was windy, but it was also sunshiny and great. And I just felt like the ancestors were beaming. The wind was whipping, so the flags can wave at their most, vibrant. So it was cool in that regard. Definitely different from last year. Last year, I felt like I needed to do something again to honor the contributions of Black folks, not just nationally, but locally. And, a lot of this history people don't know about yet. And from a lot of the time spent reading these stories and going through the newspaper and finding out about how hard people of color had fought for their own lives, security, and just citizenship at City Hall, to me felt like, why not? And I've witnessed a couple other groups raise flags, and it's just like, we've never had a marker of being like, yo, we are Black and we are here in the city of Scranton. And I couldn't think of any other way to just be like, we are Black and we are here. And again, the significance of City Hall. In the 1850s, when bounty hunters were allowed to come to pretty much any state in the North and claim their property back. So some folks had freed or have escaped slavery and found Northeast Pennsylvania as a place of refuge, right? And so if someone is coming here saying, hey, John Doe, you belong to Jacob Smith, and I'm coming to come and get you. And there's nothing you can say about it because you don't have proof or whatever. But some folks in the city of Scranton were like, hey, he works at this restaurant. No, he's not. His name is so-and-so, and he's a free person. Look, everybody who lives in the city of Scranton is free. This person is testing them. They go to City Hall, and they're like, yo, all the Black people pack City Hall out the doors. And then you have other people here who he works at my restaurant. I don't know who this man is. I've never seen this man, in the words of Keke Palmer. And everyone's like, his name is so-and-so. He lives in the city of Scranton. He is a resident here. And then that bounty hunter would go. And also, there was guns involved, weapons in City Hall sometimes. We don't talk about that part. So for me, thinking about all these things that I've been studying and going over, it just felt like, what better way for those folks who literally fought just to be residents of Scranton, and at one point were proud of it, to now where no one who's Black wants to claim this city at all. What better way to claim it than coming back to where they fought the hardest and doing it? We did it.
That's beautiful.
Second year in a row. And one thing that I heard in a side conversation at the flag ceremony that I thought that made me LOL. Somebody came through and observed and was like, hey, I noticed that this is the second annual flag raising ceremony and the flags got bigger. We had those little hand flags before, and then we had these bigger flags.
Good. And next year it'll be 10 feet.
Everybody gets a 10-foot flag, combat some of the other flags.
It's amazing. And you had such a wonderful, I was unfortunately not able to attend, I had to work, but I was watching the live stream, and you had so many people in attendance, masked, of course. It looked very safe. It looked
diverse group of people, from senior citizens to the little babies were out, all colors. I'm like, wow, y'all really came out here for this?
And you had everything from Amber Viola, of course, as you mentioned, fantastic advocate, the HR director for the city of Scranton. You had the mayor. You had Senator Casey.
Yep, who's busy right now, and he said, I'll come out. Now he's working on impeachment stuff, working on important stuff in the Senate, but this was equally as important to him, and he's from Scranton too. So
how wonderful not only to see that it was important to him, but for him to understand the need to show the community that it's important. not just sending a delegate or, a representative from his office, but he himself made the time.
Yeah.
That's really, really, and speaks highly of your organization. That's fantastic. So that was what was kind of the kickoff in a way of your Black History Month programming, which I believe that was the only, again, talking about the difference of last year to this year, that's the only in-person programming you have coming up this month. Am I correct?
Only in person, and it was very hard for me to decide, like, okay, we're not going to do an exhibit this year, because that was something that I chose to just do voluntarily 3 years ago. That's what started this all, just to make, local stories, local Black history known. And there's so many more things that I've learned since last year, and so many stories I wanted to include and work on curating and all that stuff that I'm just like low-key passionate about. But the safety of our community is way more important than an exhibit. So I just felt like, what other things can we do? We can, again, get 9 computers for the babies who don't have them. We can raise the Pan-African flag. We can continue to work on getting this community center together. We can fight against injustice with the Scranton Police Department. We can make sure that our city starts to see Black folks as residents. We can, do all of this other types of work that isn't so in the forefront, that isn't so, I don't know, hyper present, and do that work that often gets overlooked for chauvinism, I guess to say. Right. And that's something I'm still trying to get to, because like the internet is so now constantly. Like even 10 after 1, people are like, I want to see the live stream, and I'm just like, okay, y'all, but I'm trying to wrap it up, talk to people.
I know, and it's 20. We went from the 24-hour news cycle to I don't know how to describe it, the nanosecond social cycle, where it's a new content. A
lot of work doesn't happen like that, and you can't always give everybody a play-by-play how that happens. And I had to say, on behalf of our organization, sometimes I had to be okay with going silent on the internet for a couple of weeks if that means that we're having meetings with the mayor and the police chief. I'm looking at things. I'm asking them questions. I'm figuring out like how we can actually be a resource to the community, because a lot of people are all talk and say that they want to do things and they actually don't. And I want to be informed, because again, we live in a world where there's not a lot of credible. There's still a lot of credible, but there are those non-credible sources of information. And there's also not a lot of news that pertains to local minority communities here. So I kind of want to continue to keep tapping into that and figuring out how that works. And that also involves not being hyper present on the internet, because I think sometimes if you focus on just content, then the content doesn't have value if it's just keeping up with some sort of pace. So I just focus on creating things that create value, that are like people will remember. Like, like the ceremony yesterday, people are going to continue to talk about and think about it and get ready for next year, and maybe like do some digging on their own to figure out what what other stories are here, or do some family history digging now, because that inspired that. Whereas like when you spend so much time on the internet, it's just too much. And then the last part about this, sorry, Connor, the last part to this, I just felt like it still is important to do things together in the community, and there are ways to do it safely, like this flag raising ceremony. Again, it's just this one idea of 100 of them, but just to be around people, like also for me, like I'm not around people often, really. I don't do crowds. I haven't been to a restaurant in over a year. Like I am, my friends will tell you, like I'm about like COVID, and it's a pandemic out here. It's a pandemic. So just to be able to see some people interact and get that literal energy from people was like really cool to see people. Like, hey.
And from the Juneteenth Jubilee you did in the summer, which of course summer and now are very different beasts in terms of COVID. Even that was outdoors. It was so safe. And I just want to mention everyone watching this. I'm screen sharing from the Black Scranton Project website, but I'm 99% positive these images are from.
They are from last year. I probably should have made more of a disclaimer, but I also thought, but also
it literally just happened yesterday. Everyone would know. I
tried to be like, okay, it was from last year, but.
No, you're doing it. You're doing it all good. I just wanted to come here because it would be a quick way to sort of show people all the virtual programming you're doing this month. You have that Black Health Matters series. You have a lunchtime roundtable.
Tomorrow at 12. I need
Black
to create
business
about it.
Fantastic. And you have mindful meditations.
Yes.
And I know you're excited about all the programs.
Yes, I'm excited. Oh, I'm excited about that.
This one in particular, I know holds a very special place in your heart.
Yes, it does.
Live Zoom presentation Q&A of Never Caught with Dr. Erica Armstrong Dunbar on February 17th at 6 p.m. Now, I know you're excited about and love all the programming, and please tell us about all of them, but I know this one holds a very special place in your heart. Why is that?
It does. It really does. Because what year was it? The year's time, not a concept. Okay, so late 2017. Yeah, in 2017, because I was reading this book as I was being an adjunct professor in New York City. I had super commutes, is what they call it. 6.5-hour commutes every day, 3 hours one way, 3 hours back. And I would do that 2 to 3 times a week and then sub on my off days. So spend a lot of time on the Marx bus. During that time, I was like trying to read more by Black women historians because that's the space I want to step in. I wanted to learn how people would write about history, tell stories. So I came across this book and I'm like, ooh, interesting. I've never heard of Ona Judge, and I've definitely heard of George Washington. So I got the book. Fantastic read. Just the way she talks about how she just happened upon this want ad for Ona Judge. And she just saw this in the archives and was like, wait, how come no one has ever talked about him hunting down this enslaved woman until the day he died? Like, why are we not talking about it? So she went on to create the story of Ona Judge and tell how she escaped from the White House, and also the manipulations around like the abolition of slavery that the Washingtons did, like how they would like circulate their slaves when the White House was in Philadelphia, so that way they didn't have to follow the gradual rules of abolition, because at that point you could have someone enslaved for more than 6 months at a time. After that, you had to automatically free them. So when after 6 months, he would circulate his slaves from Mount Vernon back to DC or back to Philadelphia, just so he didn't have to free them. Wild. So all the stuff she was writing about, and just the way she would talk about the weather, and just all these incredible ways of just talking about history, just blew my mind. And I said, I love this woman. Where does she work? Where does she teach? And I found that she was at Rutgers, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna apply here. And I was going to a bunch of history conferences, and I was sitting at a sala. It's my favorite historical conference, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, founded by Carter G. Woodson, who's also the founder of Black History Month. So there we go. She was one of the keynote speakers, and she's talking about Never Caught. I'm like, what? I was going to bring this book with me, but I'm like, I finished it. So I'm like, wow, this is wild. I can't believe she's talking about this book here. I love her. Got the last copy that she was selling, like there to sign. I talked to her, and I'm just like, oh my God, I love you. I applied to Rutgers because like you were there, and I just didn't know you were going to be here today. It's fast. It's amazing. It's amazing. So she signed my book, like, good luck on your PhD search. Fast forward to February of 2019, and I get accepted into Rutgers. And then she emails me and was like, congratulations on getting in. I'm just like, my mind is blown. Like my advisor at Rutgers, and just showing me how to be more confident about my historical storytelling, and that, you know, I'm entering like this history space, and that's all cool. And just the ability to work underneath of these like rock star Black women historians who are changing the game and like literally writing history has been so, I'm just so grateful for it. And she also was one of the people who encouraged me to, you know, follow my truths and what I care about, because I had to make the hard decision to drop out of Rutgers University and put my PhD aspirations on hold, because I'm running a whole nonprofit. And so she, without telling me what to do, she was like, you know the answer, and you can get your PhD whenever you want. So do what you have to do, what is best for you. And so now, Scranton Reads is doing a thing. I told them about this book. They all hopped on it, whatever. And then I ended up asking them like, hey, could we co-sponsor this event and like facilitate the talk and talk to her? But y'all got to pay her. Don't ask me to ask her nothing. Don't ask me to
as going back to her, I love the dichotomy of what you just spoke on of like 20 minutes ago to then flash forward to you calling her up and being like, I'm not going to pay you, but could you just, you know.
Right. They were like, at the library, they're like, oh, could you ask her? And I'm like, never that. Nope. She doesn't even know. Like, no. You have to ask her yourself, and you could tell her that I'm on this thing, but don't use that as a way to make her pay less. Pay her.
Yeah. No, of course, no. And that's so cool. And thank you for, I'm so happy for you personally to have this mentor and this professional that you respect so highly.
Yeah, I'm still scared AF because she intimidates me, but in the best kind of way.
She challenges you. She doesn't. I mean, you know, and I'm sure she's so proud of you. And I mean, how amazing that you now get to kind of share her with the world that you've created, that you've become.
Who would have thought? I can't believe that this is like the journey of this. Like, I can't believe that I got into the best program for African American history, got to work with her for a short amount of time, now have the ability to bring her to my city. When she supported Black Scranton, was like, yeah, when I read your college application, I was like, this girl has something. Like, she's literally creating history. And for her to just compliment my work was just, I could have died then. I was like, well, what else do I need here? So, yeah.
And how significant that you've cited, you know, certain teachers, you know, from your past that weren't encouraging and didn't put faith in you, and that this was a teacher at a much higher academic level who did have faith in you, just based on your application.
Wait, I just want to pop in. Lindsay, don't buy the book. You can get it free at the library right now because it's part of the Scranton Read series.
Lindsay lives in Asheville now.
Never mind, Lindsay. Just kidding. You're still in the area. I was going to say,
yeah. Glynis is right, though. You might be able to digitally download it from borrow it from, I don't know how that works. Liz from Fringe would know better. Liz, if you're watching this, she sometimes watches it to help me monitor the comments. Liz, if you're watching, please give us advice on how the digital library system works. I sometimes go pick.
But also buy it though. Support Black women.
Yeah, but I mean, however you read it and support it, go for it.
It's a great book. It's
our local.
It's like the YA version too. So it's also, you can get it for the kids, young adult. She has an adult version of this book.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But thank you, Lindsay, for supporting the author. That's awesome. So you're telling us for those who are local, they can go to the library and get this book, or I guess call ahead, or?
Yes. I'm not exactly 100% sure how it is working or still working, since it's in a couple of weeks, 10 days. Right. Oh my God. But anyway.
As you can see on your screen, any other questions about this particular, you can direct to the email address at albright.org you see on the screen, the phone number 570-795-4315, or I don't know if you can scan a QR code through.
Well, depends on what kind of devices you have around you. Right?
Just you can go to the website at the bottom, blackscranton.org, to learn more. Or just go to the Albright Library, contact the public library system directly. I'm sure they'll be able to help you out and give whatever the answer is, give you the answer. Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing that screen for a moment. There we go.
Yeah.
So much. Tomorrow you have that Black business leader, women's leadership roundtable. You're doing mental health and mindfulness and health in general. I saw that one of the programs we mentioned before. I don't want to keep you for too much longer. But you talked about Black health in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
What have been some things that you've learned through that process, or what are some things that you've seen the community take away from these virtual conversations from Black health experts and leaders in our community?
Yeah, so that series is also one of my most near and dear this year because of the pandemic, and also Dr. James E. Foster was the first African-American doctor out here who was treating patients during the 1918 flu pandemic and was the most successful at it out here. So, and as a nod to his work in the city, and also like really caring about the health of Black and brown people, we decided to do this. We have 3 doctors and health professionals of color who are also women on the series. So once a week, we are having a discussion with a healthcare professional about different topics that affect Black and brown and minority communities the most. The first one was about the vaccine and COVID and what to know. And I will tell you right now, Dr. Swathi Gotham, she was incredible. Like the woman on the left, she really broke down what the virus is, how it impacts your body, how the vaccine impacts your body, what it looks like, different types of vaccines, why you shouldn't be afraid. Here's the research. Here's what I know. Here's my opinion. Here's the medical facts. Here's my opinion as a medical professional. And I honestly feel way more comfortable about potentially getting this vaccine than before I had this discussion with her. So really what these professionals are bringing to the table. And Dr. Swathi said she'd be happy to talk with us again, because I would love for her to do that presentation again for those who did not make it, because it really changed the game for me, because I was skeptical. So beyond that, we have other discussions, one about hypertension, and about like breast and colon cancer. So definitely tap into those. These are incredible women of color who are at the top of their field and are here to share, with our community during this time. And so I think I'm just really grateful to the doctors who are tapping in, but also to our newest board member, Dr. Vicky Sapp, who's part of the Geisinger network, I guess. She works at the School of Medicine. She's also diversity and equity leadership with them as well, and is leading the Bold Out group. So she's been tapping in with the medical side and bringing that into Black Scranton. So I love that, and it's going to take us to another level. So yeah, so many great things, and all of them are available on our website. So there's tons of things happening, a couple things a week. And then the last thing before I get out of here, there's really no way to know besides just following us. But I've been reading alongside Heather Rhodes, reading children's books that are authored by Black authors, and I've been enjoying it. I only did it one time, but I said, yes, I need to do this more. It's great. Great idea. So this week I'm going to, either Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to read another children's book, and I'm going to try and do 1 or 2 a week just because it is very fun. So if you have kids, definitely tap into the Black Scranton page. I'll make event pages as they come up. But I've been enjoying reading these children's books for nostalgia's sake, and also, I don't know, if you have kids, it'd be fun. Like, hey, I'm on Facebook. This is what we can watch together.
Thank you so much, Glynis. Thank you, Alicia, for the flag raising ceremony yesterday. The speakers were great. Agreed. We also had an earlier comment. Emma, I'm so sorry I didn't see it before.
Emma, hey.
It was great energy, and I definitely missed that feeling. Yes.
Yeah, talking about at the flag raising ceremony. Yes, for sure.
Just watching the live stream, I felt that, and it was so beautiful, and I was so grateful that everyone who made it happen.
I appreciate people for tapping into the live stream. So there. Last question.
As you mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, you are in the process and have been for some time developing a physical brick and mortar Black Scranton Arts and Cultural Center. I know you can't go, just threw my pen across the room. Happens every week. I know you can't go into too much detail, but just to give an update, because I know there are people that might be curious, myself included, where are you right now? What can you share?
We are in the final stages of all of the legal sides of property. So I can say we have a location, we have a property that is ours. It's just a matter of a lot of legal things that have to happen. How I can say that we have achieved it yet, because I don't know if that's going to be giving away too much.
It's real close, but it's real.
It's really close, and I am so. It's just a testament that this work needs to be done, and that there still are people and spaces that want to see this happen and see the value in creating spaces that are for us, by us, that help the community and create a ripple effect outward. So this space is going to be incredible. Once you know which property it is and you see it, you're like, this is it. This is official.
So for those who are watching this right now, does that mean it's all paid for? You don't need any more money. There's no support needed.
So, oh no, we are going, if we want to maintain this space and keep it open, it's going to need money all the time. This is a project that is going to be expensive. It's going to take a lot of labor. It is going to take a lot of faith, hope, and love, and caring for. So donations for this project are always going to be needed, always. I'm working on figuring out ways in terms of creating a donation/membership base, because it's going to be a space where you can utilize resources in it. It's really, really great. So I think I can say that the property that we got was donated. And to me, I think that's a testament to the work that we're doing. Obviously, it wasn't easy. That's not an easy ask to ask somebody, can I have this building?
But I think you're also underselling that it took a lot of work.
It took a lot of work. So when I was talking before about not everything isn't on the internet, you can't give people a play-by-play. Either one, for legally, you can't give people a play-by-play, or two, because that work is so takes a lot of your attention that you just can't be on the internet full time and show everybody the play-by-play while actually doing the work efficiently. So yeah, a lot of this stuff was a big undertaking. To me, it was like, if you want to be about it, and you want to do this work, here it is. Okay, so let's go for it. Let's tackle it. Let's see what we can do. And we're doing it, And so right now, we're like going over the terms and conditions, making sure things look the way we like. My people will talk to your people. My legal team will talk to your legal team. And now everybody is on the same page with an agreement. And again, like how we are going to, the next step is like how we get to announce it. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I can't wait because it's so hard. It's so hard to not talk about it and want to do cartwheels and backflips, but
I know, but it's going to be so amazing and so worth the wait.
Soon come, probably in a few weeks, so stay tuned. And then will help us do a cool little celebration. So
all you just have to call. We're going to show up whether you call or not, but it would be more, I literally have Juneteenth on my Saturday, June 19th.
Ooh, I can't wait till we can make it a whole like festival thing when it's not a pandemic. Like
I've marked on my
calendar here.
Events that whole week. It's that's on my calendar just like this. We are so excited. We have a couple more comments and then we're going to go last call. If you're watching this live, last for real, last call. We have Heather, beautiful comment. She's the reason I had the courage to speak up. Thank you,
Heather. I love you so much.
Amazing work herself. We also have Amber. Amazing conversation. Glynis is such an inspiration to me. She works so hard. She is honestly a huge part of the reason Scranton is having these events and conversations. Yes, Amber, I agree. And same to you as well.
Black women who I admire just as much. Y'all are great. Thank you so much. You guys inspire me. What are you talking about? I'm like, wow, you come up with great ideas and do so amazing things.
Anytime the three of you want to take over this show one week or any week, you could. I'll just run the tech. You could have a whole conversation. It would be.
You know what? I have an idea actually. I have a whole idea of a name of like something of a series or something.
Do you want to hold on to it?
All of my secrets, because sometimes I'll give ideas out here and guess what I see next time? I see something else in my idea and I'm like, that wasn't great. That wasn't you. You stole that.
Interesting.
On that note.
Last call for comments. Oh,
yes, girl squad, black girl magic over here,
For all those who are listening, when Glynis was talking about the need for continuing and sustaining support for the Black Scranton Project, coming from a nonprofit, sustaining support, make a monthly contribution, tax deductible. It's so important. And believe it or not, if you and 10 of your friends team up and say, I can't afford much, but maybe I could dedicate, make it a monthly gift of $10 a month. If you and 10 of your friends
always run Facebook donation campaigns.
Facebook donation campaigns.
During your birthday, say, hey, we're supporting Black Scranton this month. I actually need to, for my own org and for me, I need to run more campaigns too. So do that tonight and be like, hey, I'm accepting donations. Let's see if all of y'all can raise $100 for Black Scranton. Go.
Done. Everyone who is watching this tonight can do that. Black Scranton could wake up next week with $1,000 sitting in the bank.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook doesn't give us a check for a month later, but we'll know in March how many.
I was going to say, well, you'll know it's coming.
Yes, do a Facebook campaign for us, please.
I swear to God, it takes
all your friends to get. Yes, I get.
Still do it. I'm discouraging it. Still do it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Connor. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks everybody. Thank you so much. If you want to make a donation, you can go to blackscranton.org/donate. We posted the link directly wherever you're watching this, Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. You can find the link. We've been talking for over an hour and 10 minutes. We're going to go to your self-care Sunday, but Glynis will be back on the show soon, I'm sure. Please tune in next weekend. It's Valentine's Day. Me and one of my dearest creative partners, Simone Daniel, assuming that
Simone, yes.
So much. So unless another female force to be reckoned with in our community doing such brilliant creative work, and unless Simone and I find someone in the meantime, which means there's no way, we'll be here next week talking about love of our work, and just some Valentine's Day horrors of years.
Ooh, man, I'm definitely going to tap in.
And please, if anyone wants to tune in or join us as a special guest, if you have a real juicy story, let us know.
Right.
We're going to call it a break. This has been Fringe Focus every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night.